Right. Good evening, everybody, and good afternoon in some places in the US. This is Guro Tom Pena for episode 350 of FMA discussion. And tonight we have Master Robert Small of the Warrior Academy Martial Arts.
Hi
Hi.
there.
Good evening, Master Robert. How are you doing? And hi, Chris.
We're-
Okay. Um, So, guys, if you're watching this episode, this podcast, so please tell us where you're watching from. Say hi, um, and also please smash the heart or the like button. Master Robert is going to talk about his journey into martial arts, FMA, and also basically talk about his Warrior Academy. Okay, how he get basically into his position now, and also he's going to share with us some some skill sets from classic and how to make it practical, and also apart from that, he's also going to give us some tips on teaching certain stuff. So, good evening, sir. How are you
Good
doing?
evening. For us for the afternoon, I'm doing good. There's a bit of a cold thing going around here, so we deal with that. But anyway,
Okay.
I'm Robert Small. This is Chris Pauling, who recently got his black belt 2 months ago now, thereabouts. Chris has been around with me for about 15 years,
Wow.
as far as training goes. Um, I originally got my start, like a lot of people, in about 74. Like most, again, I saw some movies and Bruce Lee, and kind of piqued my interest a bit. And I remember as a kid, and I don't know how we did it, but a neighbor in the apartment complex where we were at, we decided we were gonna have a boxing match, and I got beat up. But we were just little,
Yeah. Yeah.
7, 8 years old. And anyway, but his dad um, did praying mantis kung fu, taekwondo, and his wife used to babysit us as kids. And anyway, so again, my interest starting about then, I ended up doing a few lessons with him when I was there, and that kind of piqued my interest. I don't remember a whole heck of a lot of it. I was little. I don't know how anybody does, that age or younger. And anyway, going on and stuff through time, I did some judo. There in Michigan, we had moved, and some boxing and some wrestling. Again, like most kids, piqued my interest as I still wanted to find more. And then about 82, a school moved to town, the
Mm-hmm.
American Arnis Academy. And that was run by Jeff Arnold. And, I didn't get the significance of it at that time, how important it was. But he was, one of the top people under Great Grandmaster Remy Priestess. And anyway, there was other people there as well. Mark Parker, learned a lot from him. Um, Several other people as far as that goes. And that really got me going because that was modern Arnis and
Yeah.
Taekwondo, but it was mainly based in modern Arnis. And at that time, it was good because we were getting a lot of the early days things with Professor, and got to see a lot of techniques that you wouldn't get to see at seminars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
went to seminars and stuff too, but to spend a lot with Jeff Arnold at that time. Um, Professor referred to him as Aquila. That was his nickname for Jeff Arnold. And I wanted to pay respect for Professor Priestess and also for Jeff Arnold, and that's why I named the system that I teach Aquila Arnis, to pay respect for those two people. Most systems, Filipino martial arts, are named after for where they came from,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
prevalent technique or an instructor,
Mm-hmm.
and so I wanted to do it that way. So anyway, but we're not just modern Arnis. What we do, later on, I did a little Muay Thai. I did when I'm at one point I had moved to New Mexico. did a little Derobia Eskrima, did Bikini Tirsi some there, and moved to Denver. I spent some time bouncing. When I was younger, before all this anyway, in the process, I also joined the Marines. Didn't do a whole lot as far as the Marines go, shot
Hmm.
machine gun. M60 was my favorite gun. Blew things up, had fun. It was also times that were terrible too, but, that was just one of those things. It was an experience. Um, I did 12 tough man contests. There was around 50 fights. Went to the regional finals 3 times. And again, I think that was important. I don't suggest for everybody. Now it's kind of like amateur boxing. Back then you could throw kicks and throw the person down, and it was much different to be at a racetrack somewhere. And it was a much different deal. Kind of a little more like MMA now. But anyway, so I wanted to know what it was like for somebody to really hit me. Of course, we were still wearing big old gloves.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know what it was like to hit somebody else. Not just play, point karate, tournament style stuff, but what it was, to actually feel to be in it.
Yeah.
And so that was fun, and again, like everything else, some good and some bad experiences, dealing with that and stories to tell. But so anyway, that was a good thing. And of course, 2002, I ended up here in the Kansas City area. And, I moved around different people. A lot of people, like, as they say, have come and gone. And some people stick with it, and have been here for a long time. And, I think that's kind of important to show who's that resilience to be able to get in there,
Hmm.
And so, stories to tell and stuff like this. I think you live by the experiences of the people that, were above you and the stories they tell.
Yeah.
And, I think that what we do in class and stuff is, again, we want to have fun. A lot of people come these days, with the idea to martial arts classes, especially kids, and parents expect that it's going to be fun.
Hmm.
You're going to babysit them. That
Yeah.
wasn't the original intent of most martial arts.
Mm,
You
that's
know,
true.
I explained to most that when we do stuff, it's the idea for realism. What's going to happen in a real situation? And of
Yeah.
course, these days, the idea of pressure testing is important. I think all martial arts, had their way of progressing, starting simple and safe to getting to where it's much tougher towards a real life situation. You got to walk that line
Yeah.
between safe and combat getting hurt. And you
Yeah.
want to kind of stay towards that middle. A lot of people have different ideas as far as that goes. And I tend to lean more towards the safe side. If I beat Chris up, he's not going to be here for the next class. You
Mm,
know, and I want people to still keep coming and still doing it. A lot of people do things for different reasons getting into
yep,
martial
that's true.
arts.
Mm,
Some people sports, some to make friends. Some people want to defend themselves. If people want to just come beat other people up, go someplace else. I've had a lot of people come to train with me who want to do MMA, and I think MMA is a great thing, but it has its place. It's still a sport if
yeah.
that's what you're after. But I tell everybody who comes to train with me that you're going to have to learn everything. Not just the tricks to play the game.
Mm,
And so I have a tendency to be a little more particular than most people, to say, hey, pick that hand up, move that foot, little details to make people do things exactly correct. Now, I think that most martial arts, and again, the intent of most all martial arts was to prepare for war, to
mm-hmm.
prepare for a battle. If you think about it, an island, a monastery, a country, all these different places, they tried to develop the best system they could for fighting against someone else to
Yeah.
attack. So, that's how you got your different styles of martial arts, and of course, as time changed, we have different weapons and different technology, all this sort of thing. But, what is the intent of your martial art that you're doing? Is
Mm-hmm.
to prepare for that actual point of combat.
Yeah.
Now, of course, today you can't go around beating people up. You're going to get thrown in jail, you
Yeah,
know.
exactly, exactly.
But for us to prepare as best as we possibly can, for that person to be prepared, that child to be prepared for that adult trying to take them, that older person being attacked out on the street,
Hmm.
they're not going to be a super athlete to be able to deal with somebody,
Yeah.
but they can be the best they can to deal with that person. And, a good thing thinking about it, a stick. I like to use the example of a stick, most times, and like Professor would say in the beginning, a stick is a training tool. Yes, it could be a weapon. Yes, it
Yeah.
could be, something I beat somebody up with, but it's also a representation of other types of things. Now, it's not exactly, a crowbar you took out of your trunk. It's not exactly a baseball bat, a tree limb next to you there. But you're going to grab what you have that's available to use. Let's face it, most places you can't walk down the street carrying a sword, you know.
True.
But yeah, that example, that way of playing with that sword, of knowing how it works, better prepares you for that real situation. A
Hmm.
bad guy goes to attack you out on the street, they're going to make sure they have the advantage.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
surprised. They
Exactly.
surprise you.
Exactly.
They've
Exactly.
got multiple people with them.
Yeah.
They have a weapon.
Yeah.
So you have to be able to do the best you can in those situations to deal with, and that's to grab what's ever available.
Yeah.
If it's a chair that's next to you, a table, something to use to defend yourself against those things. It's not going to be pretty like the movies, flying
That's
through the
true.
air doing a
That's true.
flying kick. I I love kicks. Okay, I used to be a headhunter. Used to love to kick people in the head. Yeah, tournament sparring. Uh, Today, my health problems, I can't do that as well. But you do what you can. And the
Yeah.
thing is most people, you might be a super athlete, being able to do things, do high flying kicks, all this sort of thing. But when it comes to a real fight and your leg is hurt, that's why you're not doing those flying kicks anymore, you know, or you're dead tired. You're not going to be able to do those things that you were able to do,
Exactly.
So the simple, basic things are what important. Do that front kick, do that simple thing with a stick, you
Mm.
know. A stick sometimes is a sword. A stick sometimes is a knife, because Chris and I could, do a lot of things today with a sharp sword, but again, that's not going to last very long, So you have to use something you can represent to be that sword, that isn't sharp. And you think just about any system out there, you think about your Japanese, your Chinese systems and stuff like this. They don't beat each other with a sharp sword.
Yeah.
They use a bokken, they use a wooden sword,
Yeah.
you know. And
Yeah.
so I think those things are important. And we were talking a little bit about teaching. A lot of people, and I'm just going on and on talking. Sorry.
Now, okay.
uh,
Before you go teaching, I just want to
sure.
say hi to Paul Rochelis here with us at the moment. Okay, and he commented excellent. I think he was referring to some of the things that you said earlier on. Before we go to teaching, Robert, with all the arts that you have practiced, okay, and when you did your competition, what were the things that you find uh, common when it comes to Filipino martial arts? So attributes wise, tactics wise, let's start with that. Let's start with those.
What do I think that would be common as far as the competitions go?
Yeah.
As far as use goes, a lot. I'll tell you, doing tough man contests, I saw a lot of black belts get their butts beat
Okay.
because they were not used to taking that impact. They were not used to throwing 100% on somebody. They were used to just touching somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, having those things where you pressure yourself that way to be able to deal with somebody that way, I think are good. I wouldn't suggest doing it all the time.
Yeah.
You're talking about brain damage. You're talking about all kinds of different problems that arise from that. But again, those are things you can learn from martial arts, and specifically Filipino martial arts. Specifically Filipino martial arts. The reason I say that is the dexterity that we have in Filipino martial arts of doing the different things like sinwalis,
Yeah.
being more dexterous with our hands, both sides,
Hmm.
is something that other styles don't do. I had a gentleman that I trained with in New Mexico, and he was a secondary black belt Taekwondo, and he was brilliant. I mean, beautiful kicks. He was his katas were spot on. He was just amazing Taekwondo was. You know,
Hmm.
but when he got into classes with us doing Filipino martial arts, he had a real hard time with the dexterity of the smoothness of being soft style, of moving your hands, having that dexterity. That's just something that wasn't the same in Taekwondo.
Yeah.
And for me, it was both ways. We always did punches and kicks. It was always there from the beginning, doing things. So for him, he couldn't adjust to that dexterity that we do with Filipino martial arts. And so it was hard for him. When it comes to competition and stuff like this, it depends on the competition.
Yeah.
Stick sparring and stuff like this is a lot of fun. We have a good time with it. But again, someone who doesn't practice doing sticks has a hard time with that dexterity. They have again, it can be fun for them, kind of like playing tag. It hurts a little bit, you know, but still they have a hard time with that. So you have to evolve. You have to be able to do a little bit of both. That being able to punch hard, be able to break boards, break bricks, that sort of thing. Which I don't suggest people do a lot because it hurts your hands down the road. But to have that ability to go both ways,
Yeah.
not just one, and to have that diversity, and I think that's kind of you feel that in competition too. You learn, say, at a regular point karate tournaments.
Yeah.
You learn to play the game.
Mm.
It's funny, you see all these people of different styles of martial arts that go to this tournament, and they get ready to spar, and everybody looks the same way when they're sparring. Why don't they look different? Why
Mm.
aren't they applying what they do to that
Yeah.
that type of fighting? And one thing I want to say, people have a confusion these days. They watch something, they watch videos online, and the criticism is oh, that's not realistic. That
Mm.
wasn't how you could really do it in a real fight. Well, I'm not in a real fight. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah.
when people talk about those things and sparring is great. I don't know any martial art that doesn't do sparring. Everybody does to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And you have to understand there's a difference. Sparring is not fighting.
Mm.
There's a difference. Fighting someone, no holds barred. MMA is great. It's brilliant. It's not fighting. There's no weapons.
Yeah.
There's a referee.
Yeah.
There's one person.
Yep.
The environment is safe.
Yeah.
As far as things are around. And I'm not looking for challenge matches. I'm too old and messed up for that. But the thing is people have to know the difference between, a demonstration, sparring, and a real fight. You can go
Exactly.
online and see all kinds of real fights, people going at it. And, most of those, again, realistically last 30 seconds.
Mm.
Someone really getting hurt. We don't want to fight the last 30 seconds, if all possible, especially if you're older, things aren't working quite so well. You want that fight to last 5 seconds. Quickly end it, hit specific points. When we're practicing in class, I'm not trying to hurt him. We're trying to learn from what it is what we're doing and become more effective in what we're doing. And of
Yeah.
course, we progress a little bit more towards that unsafe side, but still, again, we don't want to hurt each other. Now, 2 weeks ago, I got smacked in the eye with a stick. I was bleeding all over the place. That happens, and you learn to live with it, learn to go on from it, and don't let that happen again, you know. But again, I'm talking on beyond your question.
That's fine. I mean, actually, you have at one point like cleared a few lines and a follow up questions, basically in that respect. Because I mean, yeah, in training, you have to still be at a safe side to a certain extent, although you're trying to make it as real as possible. But of course, you don't want to be like you don't want to be to subject your students into like unnecessary injuries as well. That could affect their work, that could affect their family life, that could affect their lifestyle. So you need to have that kind of balance as well. And
Absolutely.
you made a good point with regards to videos, because I mean, when people post videos, they do have certain reasons for those videos. So not everything is about fighting, and even like sparring is still, as you said, it's not really fighting, because there are certain rules that you have to abide with, and you're still like it's still like on a safe condition. So when you spar, so you actually made those good points with regards to
We take everybody, start them off simple. They don't know
yeah,
anything, and develop skills,
yeah,
develop their abilities, what they
yeah,
can do. And not everybody's the same. There's different people, but they develop those skills so they're better prepared for a fight.
yeah.
They're better prepared for that real situation. You
That's true.
know,
That's true.
Again, still safely. But anyway,
Okay, so um, what have you got in store for us tonight then?
okay. Well, so talking a little bit about teaching, a little bit,
Okay.
not too much. A lot of people they learn martial arts, and they emulate what their instructor does,
Yeah.
and they try and become like their instructor.
Yeah.
That idea, and like Remy Priestess would say, that I don't want you to be just like me. I don't want you to be a duplicate of what I am, because everybody has their own base system,
Yeah.
and they would add modern arnis to what they did. So everybody had a little bit different variety here and there. And we
Mm.
have to understand individuals, okay? You get students that come to your school, and some are children. Some are adults that are older. Some are really tall.
Yeah.
Some are short.
Yeah.
Some people aren't in great shape. Some people are older. And all these different people, they learn different ways. Not everybody is the same in the
It's the
way they
same.
learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. Some people are really good at reading something, and
Yeah.
bam, they got it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I was told younger I was dyslexic. And that is a deterrent to learning some things. But in a way, it made me study harder.
Mm-hmm.
It made me remember more details as
Yeah.
far as things that I was doing. So not all the individuals are the same. Watching Zoom classes, during the
Lockdown.
whole COVID thing,
Yeah.
people learn stuff from that. They watch videos, they buy DVDs, and those are different ways that people learn and pick things up.
Mm.
Not everyone is the same.
Yes.
Different people learn in different ways. And sometimes the average person takes between 7 and 11 times to see one thing
Yeah.
before they get it.
Mm.
That's the average person.
Mm.
So that means you got to do things over and over and over again
Yeah.
until that person goes
That's true.
bing, light bulb.
That's true.
So you can't treat everybody the same way. When you're a martial artist and you're teaching your classes and stuff like this, you can't expect that every person is going to do it the same way. So you
Mm.
have to try it different ways for each individual.
Yeah.
Because again, not everyone's going to get it the same way. And
Yeah.
there's a basic way. When I was younger, Jeff Arnold, Crystal Arnold, went over with me some ideas on how to teach and stuff. And then I found later on a management training. I was in New Mexico, and the idea of four corner training. And the idea, to not go into detail right now, but to keep it simple as far as that goes, when you take an individual and you're going to show them one specific technique, think of four corners. That first
Mm-hmm.
corner that I'm doing, I have to explain what it is I'm going to teach you.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through, and that might be video, that might be book, that might be, all the different ways that you might explain to someone. So they
Yeah.
have an idea ahead of time what you're doing.
Yep.
Next, you need to demonstrate for them.
Yep.
Show them what it is that you're doing. A lot of people, they skip that first step or they combine those two steps,
Mm-hmm.
instead of keeping them separate. And in that demonstration of you doing it, again, you're going through it as best you can, and you might have to do it several times. Next, the third corner, I need to take that person and have them do it. Now they may do it over and over and over and over again. Like I say, 10,000 times till you get it to the point. You think in a real life situation, a lot of times when we do our demo here, we'll talk about that. For you to get it, you got to do it thousands of times so
Yep.
you can get to things to where you don't have to think about it.
Yeah. Until it
That's
becomes
great.
like a habit, an acquired habit or acquired behavior.
Absolutely. And then fourth, the next thing is, and generally someone comes to the point that they're teaching, they
Mm-hmm.
get to a point where they need to explain it back to you what it is that they did. Not just show it,
Yeah.
but to explain it. You might have them teach it to someone else.
Mm-hmm.
That really tests them at how well they've got it.
Yeah.
And then most people think, oh, that's it, they've got it now. Nope. You got to start the process over again.
Exactly.
And you should need to do that not with just, one thing, but everything that you do.
Mm.
That gets you so that all those different individuals, different ways that they learn, everybody gets it.
Yeah.
To make that process of going around and to repeat it over and over again.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is just kind of a quick way of going over it, but there's a lot of details that you can go to. But martial artists need to not just be good martial artists, but also be good teachers.
Good teachers.
And there's
Yeah.
a difference. They should know the difference between teaching and being a good martial artist.
Mm.
And, that takes time, takes a little extra study besides just doing martial arts study, but I think that that's really important. So
Yeah.
anyway, so we're going to go ahead and move our chairs here. And talk a little bit about, what we're going to show you. So most all different styles of Filipino martial arts, they have trapping hands. They might checking hand. To keep it simple, there's all kinds of different names, hubud, lubud, different ways of doing different things and how you might approach the use of it. You see a lot of people do it, and it looks like they're playing patty cake or something. We're going to go a little bit specific as far as how it works. We're going to keep it simple. We'll call it block, check, counter.
All right.
Detailed as far as, I think you wanted to do some video. I don't know.
Sorry.
Stay where we are? Stay
Yep,
where we
yep.
are? Or did you want to turn it? Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people, as far as block, check, counter, the idea of doing it again is, why am I doing block, check, counter? We have drills for practicing it to make ourselves get better, to make ourselves faster with our hands. But the purpose of it, why do I use block, check, counter, or if I use it at all? Try and use it sparring. You might get it for a quick hit on your opponent. But the problem is I'm taking a lot of extra time in order to get that one hit on my opponent.
Mm-hmm. Too much setup.
Yeah. So let's first define as far as the idea of what a block is. Okay. So a lot of people, they think as far as your Taekwondo, Tang Sudo, different systems as far as doing a block, and they think, a rising blocker, going like this and holding that position. That's great. We refer to that more as shielding. The idea is I'm covering myself up from the hit as opposed to doing a block. One thing you need to understand is a block isn't something that I can't do a block.
Mm.
A block is a result. It's not something you can do. My opponent goes to throw a punch at me, goes to throw an attack. His attack versus my attack is the block. The result became a block. So that means when I go to make that defensive strike, it has to be an attack on his arm.
Yeah.
Now, we refer to this as breaking the fangs of the snake, Dan and Santo. Okay? You attack your opponent's weapons so that they can't continue to attack you. So my defensive strikes, whether it be with a stick, whether it be with my hands, whatever the case may be, I need to attack my opponent's weapon. Use your other hand, please. I need to attack it in order to stop it. Thinking the idea we have a box around our body, our head, down to where my hands are, the sides of my body. I'm going to keep myself within this box. I'm going to keep my opponent outside this box. So as I make this, I'm trying to take his hand as he throws that punch. I just need to apply enough pressure, that hit, so that it goes outside my box. This is, again, going really simple on you. I need to apply it to an extent that it hurts his arm, it hurts his weapon, so he can't continue to strike. So doing block check counter is he goes to throw a punch with his hand again for me, please. I'm going to do a defensive strike. This has to be here. Let's face reality. Someone throwing punching, someone boxing, who knows what they're doing boxing. This moves much too fast. This is where all the power of his strike is. I'm not going to be able to go like this and stop his punch. It's not going to happen. Even for me to think that I'm going to be able to hit here is going to be pretty hard with a strike that's really going fast. Right now, he's holding this for me.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not going to stay there when it comes to a real life situation. But for practice for beginners, you have to understand we practice. Just go down real quick. Why do I have him stand in place? Why do I have him not move? Because when we're practicing, especially with being a beginner, if we're practicing doing it, I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go and just miss the end of his nose. If he moved, he's getting hit. We want the bad guy to move. We want him to get hit. But I'm going to practice as far as doing my strikes, being able to aim and be quick and not beat up my partner. Okay? So that's why he isn't moving right now. And also to show you. So he throws that punch. Other hand, switch stance. To do a defensive strike up high. This moves fast. This moves slow. I want to attack what's moving slow. My hand, as he's going, pull back. As he starts to move, he throws it slowly. This is where I'm going to be hitting. Now, of course, I'm using the palm on my hand right now. Real life situation, I'd be using a fist to hit it. I hit my opponent high. This hand is going to slide down his arm. Like this being a rope with a knot on the end. When my hand slides and gets to that rope, that knot, I can pull him into something. So, defensive strike, slides down. The check of my hand is going to go behind it. Again, slide. Most people from this point will do a backhand to go to hit them. I can pull this into that backhand, so I'm doing both things at the same time. Now, this is great. Starting off practicing, stand here for me, go this way. Most people beginning, we start people off, of course, going here, practicing, going back and forth, sliding inside and out. Again, the purpose of us doing is right now I'm on the inside of his body. If I was here, I'm on the outside of his body. I want to be able to have that ability to control where my opponent is at. So if he throws a punch at me, I can decide if I'm going to be on the outside of his arm or I'm going to be on the inside. This is important because there's different techniques that I can do from there.
Yeah.
Different locks, holds that I'm going to decide to do. So if he goes to throw a punch, we get everybody doing their block check counter. I'm making this position to go here to do this counter. Me doing that counter on my opponent gets their attention away from what I'm going to do. This can turn into me doing an elbow where I'm hitting to the arm, where I'm hitting to the head, to hit here, all kinds of different options. It's not specifically one way. So why do block check counter? Again, I'm leading myself into a position that I can control my opponent. If I'm not going to do a hold on them, I'm not going to do a lock on them,
Yep.
you shouldn't be doing block check counter. For me to go just like this as he throws a punch and I just do my block check counter on my opponent, this doesn't get me anywhere except maybe a shot on him. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing this and I'm just slapping his arm, I'm pushing that away.
Yeah.
My intent of what I was going to do a lock or a hold on him, I need to get this hold so now I can do something on my opponent. Okay? If I'm just pushing, I'm just clapping it, now it's gone. Now I don't have it anymore.
Yeah.
I have to have that intent is I'm taking it to get to a position of control. A couple of the simple basic ones we start people on is we do our block check counter, just say going back and forth, go slow. Just going back and forth, block check counter, just to get us associated with it, that feel, that control of my opponent going back and forth. Okay, this is still a drill. This is not how you would use it.
Yeah.
No bad guy out there on the street is going to go to attack you and then know how to do block check counter. Okay? The intent is most people say like shoot fighting. Someone's planning to go in to shoot, to grab his legs, to take him down. And a lot of people discovered in the process of them trying to do so, I'm trying to go in on him, and next thing you know, he punches me or knees me to the head because I'm trying to get a hold of him.
Yeah.
I can use block check counter to get control of my opponent. Okay? I don't want switch hands. They can see you better. So I can use this to get myself closer to my opponent without getting hit, hopefully. As he goes to throw his punch again, I use this to get here, to get myself, now I'm at that close position, so now I can do a lock or hold on my opponent. Now, instead of me just trying to do it, if I'm not getting the counter, and you got to understand, if I'm making this position, if I'm not getting his attention with that strike to that head, or here is my kick, or hit to the ribs here, this is getting his attention away from what I'm doing here. So this way, now I can get this straight arm bar. Locks or holds, I think is an important thing for everyone to remember and think of. Sometimes they're painful, sometimes they hurt. And you can get pain compliance from your opponent by putting them in a painful position.
Yeah.
Every lock or hold can be gotten out of. There's no such thing as one that can't.
Yeah.
A little bit of knowledge. If, this simple thing of me going like this, I get him in armbar. He knows how to get out of this really quick. He puts my hand, and now he's got me in a bad position. A little bit of knowledge goes a long way if someone could get out of that situation. We look at a lock or hold as a temporary position to move them somewhere else.
Yeah.
I use this armbar to move him over here. I use this to pull him down. Okay? I'm using it in different ways to get him to move somewhere else. Now, if I move him, he's still going to fight. He's still going to go to get out of that position. So some of the simple ones we use, again, practicing for doing block check counter is he throws his punch, me going here, I do my stun strike, is I might go into like what some people call this a figure four. You'll hear this figure four position.
Yeah.
This is one, the straight arm bar. Now, he can still fight me. He's going to go to throw a punch at me, right? Of course, there's a defense where I go here and I kneel. I go here and I turn him to go this way. There's a lot of different options of different things I can do. But if I stay in this position, he's going to get out.
You're going to get decked.
Yeah. So this is good, again, for me to go into that counter, for me to do something else, to lead him to a different position where I do a lock or hold on him so that I'm choking my opponent or something else, but not to leave him in one position. So again, block check counter is not something we're just going to sit here and play back and forth. Us doing block check counter, this is us for developing our skill, our ability to control our opponent, moving in and out. And we go back and forth like this. And when he feels like it, and it seems like he's in a good position, he might put me in a lock, put me in a position. So we go back and forth. There's no set time.
Yeah.
We just decide When I feel
Yeah.
I got it,
Mm.
I'm comfortable, I practice doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, again, that's keeping it simple. Simple idea as far as doing it. Um, got a stick. So, applying what we do, again, people have different names for these techniques. They have different ideas on how they work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
one of the simple things is keep it again as far as block check counter. Now, there's one part thinking of Espada y Daga, sword and dagger. You see a lot of people, different systems and whatnot, people who are practicing and have an idea, and you'll see them go like this, where I lead my knife like this. I try to stab my opponent. He's going to hit my arm if I put my hand out there. The idea between Espada y Daga, sword and dagger, is my long weapon is always forward. This is for my defense. This is for my attack. My other hand, my knife hand or empty hand, is here to protect my sword. My
Mm-hmm.
sword, again, as I go to attack and do things, I go to defend, and he tries to take my weapon away or tries to do a lock or hold. This is for me to defend my sword. If I reach this out here, it becomes vulnerable for him to be able to, again, cut it off. It's just like if an opponent has a weapon in his hand and I try and throw a kick at him, he's going to hit my leg.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to end up cutting my leg off. Something I don't want to have happen. So again, my shorthand, my weapon, the hand that doesn't have anything or has a knife in it, stays back to defend as I'm making attacks at different motions. So that's kind of an explanation a little bit about what we're going to do. You're out of camera. So as I go to make a strike, he's going to do block check counter using his stick or sword hand first. As he goes to make an attack on me here again, I'm going to do my defensive strike using my sword, my hand, and then go to counter on him. Now this could, again, I can still do locks, holds, that sort of thing, again, as far as that goes. This just being a stick right now, not being a sword, is a little more comfortable for us doing it. Here's something that some people, they get, some do and some don't. Yes, our niece is a stick art, but everything you do with a stick is also a representation of a sword. We
Mm-hmm.
practice all the time. Again, that idea of him striking me with this is for practice purposes. Me hitting the stick is not where you'd want to go as far as a real life situation. This is, again, for me to practice so it's not hurting him. Down the road, you're going to accidentally get hit. Your hands, your knuckles, your fingers are going to get hit. But when it comes to a real life situation, I wouldn't go here. My real situation would be to hit to that hand. I'm at a largo mano distance, the distance where he can't hit me, but I can hit his arm or hit his hand. Okay? This is largo mano. Again, from here, real life situations, I tell you what, I don't care how good you are. Your opponent has that machete. Grab your machete. And you're out on the street and that guy's got a machete. Nobody is going to go like this and come in here to Sombrata or Dumont range when he's got that machete. Okay? It's not going to happen. So, again, being safe, I'm going to be in largo mano. I'm not going to go against that blade. I'm going to go to that hand. I'm going to go to that arm. If I break that arm, great. If I don't, I hurt it. He's going to be going like this. He might drop that thing. Now I have that opportunity to come in close to do something else, to do more with it. Okay? As opposed to just coming in right off the bat. Grab your stick again. Thank you. So we'll do a little bit here as far as going back and forth a little bit. Again, the idea of doing block to counter. Now I can mix this up. I can put thrusts in here. Again, but my motion is always, you'll notice as I made a low strike. If we're at close range and trying to make these strikes, of course, I'm in this close range. It's kind of hard to hit with the tip of your cane where all the power is at. But if I'm here and I go to make a thrust to his stomach, he doesn't want to drop his stick down To be low in this position, now I take advantage of the fact that his stick is down. You're not, if that stick, my weapon comes below his waist, he doesn't want to reach down with his stick. He's going to use his hand, keep his weapon away, as opposed to putting it down. So if it's a low strike, now he's controlling my stick and whacking me in the head. Okay?
Yep.
So again, the range. If I'm out here, Sombrata, this range, I can go like here to go to hit him low. He's safe to hit my hand, hit my arm at this range because I'm doing a low strike. If we're here, close range, never put your hands below the waist. Okay? My hands being down here, it's like saying, here, hit me to the head. You know? Something you don't want to do. So again, a little bit more as far as block check counter. You see, I'm never going like this, leading with my punch. Again, like that Adeya Spotty Daga, bam, I'm saying here, cut this off.
Yep.
I don't want to get my hand hit. So again, thinking of that same idea, down. Using a knife, whether it's a foregrip or reverse, whatever you're comfortable with as far as that idea again. Real life again, if you're going to attack someone's arm to defend, to go to hit, bam, my arm is hit and my arm is disabled. We know that. Real life, as far as that goes. Again, you're practicing a drill, again, leading with my longer weapon. My knife is longer. I'm going to use it for my defense. I'm going to use it for my attack, keeping my free hand back. As I go to make an attack, doing block check counter, he's doing that same thing, that same idea. I'm going with my hand. Go slow. Same idea. If we're close to my opponent this way, if I go to strike down, come over here. If I go to strike down at this range, go to hit him here, he uses his hand and keeps his weapon high because he doesn't want to put his weapon down. If he puts his weapon down, I'm setting him up. Okay? Because he put his hand down below his waist. If I do this, I'm setting him up to make him reach for it. Okay? Instead of actually how he should use it. So again, going back and forth. Simple drills as far as progressing. So again, we're going to go a little bit further. Grab your machete with the knife. Same idea again. We both have a long weapon. We both have a short weapon. As he goes to make his attack, we'll go slow. Okay. Again, I'm using my long weapon as part of my defense. My hand, I'm defending. I'm not reaching towards him with my knife. Here, I attack with my knife. He comes across, uses his long weapon. I'm going here. I'm coming to the outside, checking. Again, long weapon, short weapon. And this takes a little bit to get coordinated, to be comfortable with. You're off camera. So there's instances, there's opportunities, go put the knife down, where your hand is in the wrong place. Your weapon is in the wrong place, and I can't get it. He has defended my sword, and use your hand, and my sword is over here. I don't have that opportunity. I'm just not going to let him hit me. I'm going to use my hand to defend that motion, then come back with my sword, and then continue on using my sword. Mm-hmm. So when that happens, again, I use my longer weapon, again, when I can, but if my longer weapon isn't available, then I'd still use my hand to do a defensive strike. Now, one thing you'll notice as we're doing this, as I'm doing a defensive strike using my hand, I'm using the palm of my hand right now. Not using a fist. I'm not using a grab. If someone's sweaty, again, someone's trying to move, this sort of thing, he feels when I make that grab. He can take advantage of that as putting me into a lock or taking my hand off. He knows I'm about ready to do something. So this hand being this way, this allows me for control to move my opponent. And when he tries to move, I have better able to be able to defend against that. I can adjust to what he's doing because I'm not putting my thumb in there. When he feels that thumb, he knows I'm getting ready to do something. Okay? So go ahead and put that down. So back to where we were as far as the hands go. There's a lot of things we can innovate this, and we talk about beats, okay, or having a rhythm to
Yeah.
how someone fights, how someone spars. If
Yeah.
you spar one person a lot, you get a feel for how they spar. You
Mm.
get an idea of how they are.
Yeah.
We think of doing sinwales like single sinwale or double sinwale, where there's a rhythm, there's a beat to it. And we talk about doing a half beat. A
Yeah.
half beat is where I break up that rhythm. I get the feel from what my opponent is, and then I break that rhythm to catch them off guard. So, kind of doing block check counter a little bit, we're going to do a couple things that are going to break that rhythm up. So, again,
Okay.
going back and forth, same idea. To apply a break in the rhythm, I'm going to do a defensive strike and then right to a counter. So instead of doing 1, 2, 3, I went 1, 2. So again, going here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Stay on the outside for me over here. Okay. We're doing 3 motions, block, check, counter. And here I'm going to go as he throws that strike here, and here's my punch. So I went 1, 2, throwing off his rhythm of doing 1, 2, 3. So he can still pick it up. So we're going to do block to counter. I'm going to break that rhythm, and he's just going to go right into it and continue to pick it up. So we're still doing block to counter, half beat. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's another one we can put into this. And again, you can do this with sword, do this with knife, do this with stick. The same way is instead of going 1, 2, 3, I go 1, 2, or I do a double strike where I go defensive strike, counter with the same hand. Bam. Again,
Okay.
throwing off that rhythm as opposed to continuing to go back and forth. So you can play with this. I think one of the great things, initially about martial arts is that you have your ability to progress and develop your own flavor, your own style of how you do things, not to be a duplication of me. So
Yeah.
the way you do things could be a little bit different. So we make this motion doing block check counter. Again, I go here and I put this elbow in there. He has to adapt to it because I'm going to hit him to the ribs. He's going to go ahead and take that motion and deal with it. So I'm going to try and do different locks and holds with this and different throws. There's nothing that says I have to do it one given way. Okay, there's nothing that says I have to be stuck and do it this way because Mr. Small said to. I want my students to have their own flair, their own idea of how they do things. And I think that's important for the expansion of our martial arts. As
Mm-hmm.
we talked earlier,
Yeah. Yeah.
your traditional systems and stuff like this develop their best way to defend. And I think what happens is a lot of systems have gotten to a point that they say, this is the traditional way. This is the way you do it. Don't question it, just do it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
I say, question it. What is it? How do I make it better? If I
Exactly.
can't continue to evolve, continue to make myself and my system better, that's traditional. That's the
Mm.
way of going to make the better system, not just to be stuck in one way of doing things.
Yeah. That's true.
So thinking as far as doing things, and again, us doing our block check counter, me making this motion, I'm not stuck where I am in what I'm doing. I can decide what I'm going to do as far as my different locks, my different holds. Grab a knife.
Uh, Robert, before you go
Yes.
get into the next one, at one point would you start asking your training partner to be a little bit non-compliant? How do you progress into doing these things and your partner becoming non-compliant as well?
It's a feel of the individual.
Okay.
There's a time where they become faster, more dexterous, and you feel that when you're doing.
Okay.
They're able to counter what it is that you're doing.
Okay.
So us doing our block check counter, honestly, it doesn't take long.
Mm.
Once they get that block check counter down, and again, this is something we don't start until a little bit later on, they've had, maybe a month or two of work, before they even start doing block check counter. But once they get to that point and they're comfortable as far as feeling, going back and forth, then we say, okay, let's add that elbow.
Okay.
Let's
All
add
right.
this lock. Let's add this hold to it.
Okay.
And they'll become comfortable with that. And still, that's never the end of the progress.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
lot of people, as far as single Sinwali, doing single Sinwali, right? A simple thing as it goes. And we learn to do our single Sinwali and you get it down. Chris still does single Sinwali with beginning students because
Why
there's
not?
always still stuff for him to progress on,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
So what I was thinking on, do you have another question or
No,
you good?
I'm good. I'm good with that. I'm good. Yep. Thank
Okay.
you.
In today's, martial arts groups out there, there's a big argument as far as dealing with a knife.
Yeah.
What do I
Okay.
do as far as dealing with a knife? Now, of course, you got to understand different countries, different cultures. They view things as far as carrying a knife differently.
Yeah.
Uh, you know,
And law as
most
well.
most people you can think of, people work here in the United States. A lot of people carry a little pocket knife in their pocket,
Mm-hmm.
and our view on dealing with a situation with a person, put in your belt, is if we get into a confrontation with somebody, always presume a weapon is coming out.
Yep.
Just because I don't see a knife, it's in his pocket, it's on a sheath behind his back, always presume that a knife is going to be coming. Now, we should always avoid a situation if possible. It's nice in here in Missouri, we have the stand our ground law that you can defend yourself. You don't.
Oh.
Just a second. Camera fell. Okay.
Um,
Little
angle it
cricket.
down a little bit. Yep. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, we need to presume that, any situation, the knife is going to be there, it's going to come out. If possible, to get out of that situation, if that person pulls a knife on you and you manage to see it and I have the opportunity to get away, I'm going to get away. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's basic. But there's a lot of times that you can't get away.
Yeah.
There's instances you're in your house, family members are there. You're not just going to run away when your family is there.
Yeah. And leave them
You know,
behind.
you you have to do what you have to do to deal with that person, the bad guy, as far as the knife goes. So this is a nice thing about Filipino martial arts and that use of that stick. We can. This is a diverse weapon. Sometimes my stick isn't exactly a nice stick like this. Maybe it's a lamp off a table. Maybe it's a chair. I can use this chair to keep that knife away from me. Different options as far as that goes. So what we talk about doing is doing drills. Drills to make us more proficient, to be able to deal with someone attacking us with a knife. If I
Yeah.
can get away, I'm going to get away. Let's go ahead and pull your knife. I'm sorry. Just hold it. So we're going to go slow and take it as far as that what it is. You can know that we're not going at full speed trying to hurt each other right now, but it's for demonstration purposes. So again, if we know that a person has a knife and they go to attack me, if I'm at a distance, if I can, I want to create distance. This goes the same, a police officer, I've got a gun. I still want to create distance from that knife. That's
Mm-hmm.
much faster, especially 5-6 feet, than a gun to be able to get that thing out and be able to shoot it.
Yeah.
Yes, there's quick draw artists out there that can really fast get their gun out and be able to use it. Not most people, especially if they're in their home, it's not on their belt at that time. So person goes to attack me with a knife, I want to create distance to make that person have to reach for me. Now I'm going to close the distance to be able to deal with that knife. Okay. So again, to go to largo mano, go to a distance where that person can't hit me, and then to quickly come to a position as before he makes his next strike. Yes, we know the sewing machine motion, right? Go like
Yeah.
this, stab like this, as far as that motion. Those are really hard to deal with. And a lot of your bad guys out there, they practice the habit of doing that, making that motion to be able to get someone. At the same time, that knife guy, that bad guy, comes in here and he uses his arm to control me at that same time as he's making that sewing machine motion. That's really hard to deal with. Okay, in class, you're going to die 1,000 times. You
Yep,
should.
you
You
should.
should in class.
That's how
That
you
way, when
learn.
you're out, that way when you're out there, you're less likely to get hit.
Yep.
He's going to surprise me. And go out there and look at your basic statistics. People who've been attacked with knives. Most things out there, most people, it's not your fancy cuts. They're not cut. They're stabbed,
Yeah.
not cut.
Yeah.
And that's internal damage. That's, a lot of bad things. So dealing with that situation, again, if he goes to make an attack on me, again, look at those statistics. It's going to be within 3 feet. How many people practice dealing with that knife at 3 feet? Now, again, there's something wrong with our drill we're doing right now. I know he has a knife. I
Uh-huh.
know he's going to attack me. So that's an advantage that you don't have out on the street. Out there, it's a surprise. Hey, you got any change I can borrow for the phone? Bam, and I stab him before he gets a chance to do anything. If we're standing here, and put your knife in here, and I've got a knife that he doesn't know about, and I'm talking to him because I need a ride somewhere, and I'm too close, and his hands are down. And I say, hey, can you give me a ride? Before he ever has a chance to move his hands, before he ever has a chance to step back at 3 feet distance, he's cut.
Yeah.
He's in a bad shape. If you're within 3 feet of your opponent, your hand should never be down. They should be up like this. They should be in front of you, a prepared position like this. He's telling me he doesn't want any trouble. At the same time, he's going to put 1 foot back. This way he can move, he can lean, he can deter me trying to attack him. I look friendly. I look like I'm just being a nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm in 3 feet range. His hand should never be down. Now he has an opportunity to be able to do something to stop me. Is this 100%? Is he going to be able to get me 100% of the time? No. There's going to be coincidental cuts. He's got his knife. He's a bad guy this time. And he's going to make an attack on me, and he goes to hit me. I might get a little cut as long as I don't continue to get cut. One little cut, I'm bleeding out in 30 seconds. But I want to try and minimize that as much as possible. If I do get a little cut on my arm, something like this, not for me to go, oh no. I need to be able to continue from habit of what I'm going to do to deal with my opponent. I can't just stand there and go into shock from it. And this takes practice. It takes time to do it. So a lot of people have different ideas. Have you seen these guns? You see these arms with the tattoos on them? Okay, so I go like this, and I'm trying to control my bad guy. I got 2 hands, and I'm holding on to his arm. It might be sweaty. It might be bloody. If I do this, I don't have control of that knife. He still has control as far as that movement goes. He still has that control. That's not going to work. I do this, and I got a hold of him here. I'm thinking, I got him now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep. Forearm still
every
free.
time I try to control this arm, I need to get to a point where one hand is low, one hand is high. It can be my arm. It can be reversed. Either way, one up, one down. Now I have control of that arm. Now, I know he's going to punch me in the back of the head now. I can't stay in this position. This is going to hurt.
Mm.
This is going to kill me. So, first things I need to do coming to a real life situation is not be in shock. Whether I'm on the inside or I'm on the outside, he's using this arm to try and control me. I need to get his attention away from this. This is
Yeah.
going to kill me. So if I do this, I have a hold of it. I'm going like this. I'm going here. He's still concentrating on this. I want to make him guess what color the ceiling is. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's looking at the
Chin
ceiling.
jab.
If it's under the chin, if it's grabbing his beard, pushing on his head, putting my fingers in his eyeballs, what's he thinking about now?
Set
He's
face.
thinking about this. He's not
Yeah.
thinking about this anymore. So again, real life situation, I might not get that first slash at me. I might got a little cut. I'm going to still go here to grab that knife, to make it go where he doesn't want it to be. At the same time, I'm going, what color is that ceiling? Right away, I'm going from here to one arm high, one arm low. Turn around this way so they can see. Okay, so I'm making sure I've got one high, one low. Here, hand, arm, under, either one. Now, no matter what, from here, now his attention is starting to come back to this. What's going on? I have to do this to make him lose his attention here. After here, directly to here, then I'm going to use my knee to hit that arm. Very first thing right away. No matter what, anything else I do, I'm hitting this. This might break the arm. It might hurt the arm, might make it a little bit numb. But no matter what, I'm not letting go of this as long as this knife is here.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping control of that knife. I'm keeping control of that arm. No matter what happens with this, bam, I break that arm. Now, that doesn't mean I'm done. You know, I
Yep.
can go knee here, hit to that leg, kick his leg out from underneath of him. I personally, I like to go, hey, look, a quarter, and I'm gone. Okay? So, again, keep it simple. Same idea. He goes to defend. I do a defensive strike. Inward. Here, defending against that arm, strike to the head. I've got two arms, two hands on that arm. I'm on the inside this time. Still, bam, hit that arm. Hopefully break that arm, hurt that arm enough that he drops that. If not, I still hang on to it, kick his leg out, knee him, kick him, make him go like this. Whatever the case might be, as long as that hand is still on that knife, I leave it there.
Mm.
I don't let go of it. That's kind of our idea as far as the knife.
Yeah.
Now, again, it's not 100%. You have to do it a
Yeah.
couple thousand times.
You have to drill
So
it. You have to test it.
if you have to think about it, if you take a second and go, oh, it's not going to work. You have to do it and do it and do it so that you get it down without thinking about it. But
Yeah.
I guarantee that bad guy's got that knife. If you're not getting his attention away from this,
Mm.
he's still thinking about it, especially if he's making that sewing machine motion, right?
Yeah.
Try this when you guys are training at home. You're working on it. Have them do the sewing machine motion and go like this and see if they can still do that sewing machine motion. It doesn't work. That stops the motion.
Yeah.
But again, you're not going
It
to.
breaks their structure from keeping their forward pressure.
Yeah, exactly. I do this. I'm not going to stay here for 20 seconds. I'm going to stay here for 1 second.
Mm.
Then I'm going to get right to here. You know, that just gave me a chance to get a hold of this.
Yeah.
And yeah, if he's hitting me, if he's throwing those punches on like that, you know, yes, I'm getting hit, but as long as this is here, that knife is there, I'm not letting go of it. You know, I'm not going to say this is 100%. Okay. And that punch in the back of the head, that's going to hurt. but that gave me a chance to do that elbow to that arm.
Mm.
I'll tell you, a punch can kill somebody. I know a lot of people have been punched. A lot of people have been hit. I saw a punch kill someone in tough man contests. It happens. You got to know, that everything isn't 100%, but this gives you one of your best chances to deal with a knife. I think a knife is probably one of the hardest thing to have to deal with in a real life
Yeah.
situation. It takes no skill to take that knife and go to hit me.
Yep.
But if
That's
my
true.
if my bad guy knows what he's doing with that knife, oh, it's a bad day.
Yeah.
He knows to defend it. He knows what he's got to do. It's going to make it much tougher. So
Yeah.
anyway, do it 10,000 times and then criticize it.
Yeah.
Think about it as far as practicing it over and over and over again. Try it with stick. Try doing your block check counter like we were talking before. We're doing block check counter. And now do it from block check counter, right? Now he does the motion, and now he goes to make his disarm of that knife there. Disarms. Disarm is whether it's a knife, whether it's a stick, whether it's a stick versus a stick.
Mm.
I love doing disarms. Grab a stick. They're fun. They're a good time. He goes to make a strike at me. Me practicing doing disarms and all the different kinds that we can do, right? And they're great practicing classes. Still, my student is being compliant to a certain extent.
Yeah.
We make it so that he's being not compliant so much, so that he resists and puts his hand there, and I do a different disarm on him, and I might turn this into a lock or a hold to do different things on him. The reality is most people don't work them enough. If you say disarms don't work after 5, 10 times, you don't know what you're talking about. If you do disarms 10,000 times and it doesn't work, then say the same thing.
Yeah.
The reality is we're fighting it or practicing at some broader range. We're sitting here right now. This is where we can practice doing our motions, and we can see what we're doing, and we can emphasize different things in the way we do our disarms. My student can learn from what we're doing. Real life situation, like we talked about, guy goes to swing at me. I'm at largo mano. I hit that hand. I've disabled him a little bit, maybe not completely. I come in on my opponent. I'm at Dumog range where I can control my opponent and go to do stuff. Now I find myself in the right position. I feel it, and I do the disarm I feel like doing. I can't go, okay, I'm going to do a number 6 disarm. It's not going to work. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to do the disarm I want.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing for block check counter that we started with. I can't at this range. He throws a punch. I do my block check counter. That's not going to happen. Not really. But likely, we're on the ground grappling, or he grabs me, get ready to throw a punch. Now I might do my block check counter on my opponent to control my opponent to do those motions, because I felt the position, because I've done it 10,000 times. I found myself there so I can do it.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson is famous for saying, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yep. Yep.
It's what you do after you've punched in the mouth that has become second nature to you that
Exactly.
makes that difference, what you're going to be able to do. For you to do disarms, for you to do locks and holds, it's not doing it 10 times and then criticizing it. You got to spend those thousands of times. Anyway, I could keep talking for a couple more hours.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Robert, before you go to the next one, Dean has a comment on the grab and stab. Grab and stab is incredibly difficult.
As far as dealing with a knife,
Yeah.
absolutely. A knife, dealing with a knife. My opponent goes to attack me. He's got a knife, right? No, here. It's really hard for everybody, especially sweating. There's blood on you. For me to go like
Yeah,
this and grab a hold of that arm,
that's
right?
true.
Is that what you're referring to? Okay.
That's true.
He's going to pull that thing right out, man. That's not going to happen. So our motion, again, like we talked before, is I have to meet this with a strike. Go with the other hand, please, so you can see. So as I do a defensive strike, I'm using, say, the cut of my hand to strike and go here. I'm going to move him forward. I'm going to move his arm so it's not where he intended it to be. As my hand moves, there's my grip. When I have a hold of it, I'm not going to try and grab it here because now when he moves, it's just going to come out of my hand. I need to allow my hand for adjustment. Again, a lot of people do this, hubbud, lubbud, right? To move and then bring it to my grip. I need to hit it, cause nerve damage, cause a stunning motion as I'm here. This causes this movement, so I've got a hold of it. Now I'm going to two hands.
Mm-hmm.
You're absolutely right, Dean. There's no way I can just grab a hold of it. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen. I have to hit it, cause that stun, move it to a position where he doesn't want it to be, go to two hands. If I just stand here and I have a hold of it, I'm getting beaten up. That's not
Yeah,
going to happen.
that's true.
This has to be from right here, right away, bam, to break that arm, to take him down, to throw him, to control him, still keeping hold of him until that knife is gone. So again, like Dean was saying, very, very great
You need
question.
you need to keep
You
him going, keep him off balance.
you have to practice that idea of how you control that arm,
Mm.
not just grabbing it. To
Yeah,
start with, as we say, that knife hand into a grab, that movement into a grab, not to try and just do this where he pulls it out. Because
yeah,
you're right, Dean, that's not going to work.
yeah.
Anyway,
I think
any other questions?
the important thing there is you focus more on controlling the arm, not just basically grabbing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And getting his attention away from it.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
know, if I'm just grabbing this, I'm trying to just hold on to this.
Uh,
His focus is there too.
you'll,
He's looking at it. I got to go. Now he's looking at his toe.
yeah,
He's where it gets stomped on it. You know, his attention is away from this. If you're skipping a stun strike, so we have to define a stun strike. Keep it simple. A lot of people talk about goonting, where he throws a punch, I do a defensive strike, and I goons. I hit across that muscle.
yeah, the good
This
thing.
does this does great damage, right? Bam, hurts that arm and stuff like this. There's a problem. This goonting is not a stun strike. It's still here. It's still that same point of concentration.
Mm,
I need to get his attention away from this. Now, I'm not saying goonting isn't good.
yeah,
Goonting has its place, right? But if I need to get his attention away from this, I got to go here. I got to go somewhere else besides this arm. A stun strike, and that goes for just about, grab a stick. A lot of people practice doing disarms. And they do a specific one where they go to strike and they practice doing that one disarm, where they go to do it every single time. He's going to resist it. He's going to fight it. I need to do something to get his attention away from where that stick is, away from that disarm is.
yeah, that's true.
Bam, now he's thinking about his nose because I just put my stick in it. Okay? Do a stun strike that gets his attention away from this. Now
Yeah,
this is going to work better. You
misdirect.
know?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You have to take their attention away from what it is you're doing.
Mm,
So again,
mm.
anytime you're thinking about working any drill, this is great for hurting my opponent, disarming them, disarming them. This is great, but his attention is still here.
It's
I
still,
need to
yeah,
get his attention away.
yeah,
Then it's going to work better. And that goes for all types of disarms. Knife, stick, whatever it is you're dealing with.
that's very
All
true.
right. Any other questions?
Oh, no, there's another comment from Dean here. It's nothing in knife defense is 100%, which is really true.
Sure. All right. So he's saying what? What's he want?
So he said nothing in knife defense is 100%.
Absolutely. So a lot of people criticize stick fighting and knife fighting and the idea that, oh, that's just a little hit to the arm. That's a little hit to the hand. We were practicing doing it and bam, I got hit on the hand because I wasn't wearing a glove, right?
Mm,
So I can take it, right? Dog Brothers, seeing their stuff is awesome. It's great. It's awesome. They're still wearing protective gear. There's a reason they're wearing protective gear. Dealing with a knife. Oh, I got a little cut, right? I can
yeah,
keep going. I'm tough. I'm tough. I can deal with it. I can tell you that a little cut can make it so that you can't continue. A little tiny cut as far as that knife goes. Again, like Dean was saying, 100%, absolutely anything can happen. That's why you got to practice. And you
yeah,
still end up getting surprised.
that's true.
Anybody can be caught off guard. But a little cut to your hand, I've got a cut across my wrist here where I got cut and my fingers couldn't work.
Mm,
I couldn't close my hand. I couldn't open my hand. My hand didn't work. There's no way I could continue to hold something.
yeah,
Okay. And I'll be honest, as I've used this as an example before, it wasn't a knife fight. I got cut at work, but it was a good example because a little tiny cut of less than an inch disabled my arm, disabled my hand so that it wasn't able to work. You can imagine the same thing as far as being in a fight with somebody.
mm,
That one smack with that stick on your hand, now your hand's broke,
yeah,
and now it doesn't work. That one strike with that knife. So you can't predict what's going to happen in a real
yeah,
situation.
true,
Like Dean is saying, 100%.
true, true.
Um, but the more you practice it, the better you'll be in that
Yeah.
surprise situation.
That's the thing is when you get struck in the correct part of your hands mechanically, you're gonna be affected.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody can be surprised. You can be the
Yeah.
greatest martial artist in the world, and somebody sneak up behind you and poke you in the ribs.
Mm,
The difference between somebody who knows what they're doing and someone who doesn't is how many times they practiced it.
yeah, that's true.
That
And they make it
that
non-telegraphic
matters.
as well.
Yep, that's it. So you got to spend time doing it, not just saying you can do it.
Mm, that's a good. Yeah,
Anyway,
brilliant.
grab your seat.
That was.
So I'm not as, I'll say at some things I'm more proficient nowadays, just because of practice and everything. But of course, I have medical problems. See what I can do. Kind of got this precariously up here.
Yeah,
Okay,
angle it a little bit.
more. Let's see.
Yeah, I think that's a good. Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, they were
so
actually
you
nice.
can be.
They were nice demos. Okay, so
Thank you.
uh, how from there? So you normally practice it in sort of like a drill. Then how do you basically like apply it, or how do you apply pressure testing in those drills that you did?
So of course you start with your basic idea of block check counter.
Yep.
Doing block check counter, you're getting simple, you're getting faster, you're getting better at it. So then you add a different strike, add an elbow in there. You add a couple locks where you're just looking where your opponent is in a good position for you to do them in, right?
Okay.
And you do it back and forth, you do it back and forth. There's nobody's turn.
Yeah.
You're both looking to do it at the same time.
Okay.
And as far as pressure testing it goes, you start to resist more. The other person, when you're trying to do that lock, they start to resist you instead of going along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you start practicing it that way. Now, also at the same time, we'll do like people get into a circle or people get into a line, and you'll practice one person going up and attacking them over and over and over again. And they'll
Okay.
use block check counter use Sinwali and apply it and then try and do a locker hold as that person is resisting. And of course, you got to still be safe as much as possible.
Yeah.
But as you do so, you make it harder and harder and harder. Of course, try and do some of these things during sparring. That's pretty tough. It's hard to do. And if you're sparring with the protective equipment on, it's really harder to do, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
you can never get to a situation, as far as a knife goes, as far as someone attacking with a stick, that they don't know it's a drill, that they don't know that that knife is coming. You know, uh, Again, those drills that make you faster, make you more dexterous, prepare you better for that real situation, but you can never get to the point that that person is surprised.
Mm.
You can never get to that where, they're off guard, They know it's a drill. They know they're in class. They know that knife stab is coming. And that goes for gun drills as well. Knife, stick, any different weapon,
Okay.
or without a weapon.
Okay. Do you ever get your students to practice in low light, Robert?
Yeah, absolutely. We've done it in
And
complete
also
dark
like
before.
outdoors as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, what's nice about the gym here and stuff too is sometimes we go out front, and
Okay.
practice daylight. Sometimes, as far as do stuff as it gets darker. Not here at this place, but at the other school and stuff too. But yeah, absolutely. You can change the conditions a lot. Think about, doing drills with a person that's on the ground, where we choose, one person has a knife, one person doesn't.
Yeah.
All kinds of your different scenarios. What if there's more than one person? Go through drills and how do we deal with multiple attackers? Different weapons. I'll use a funny example real quick that I don't know who's watching right now, but I remember being at Master Parker's black belt test,
Mm-hmm.
and the board was there, and the drill is we all knew as students under Master Arnold what was happening and what was going on and stuff like this. But Mr. Parker's in the center room, he's been doing his test all day long, and then all of us grabbed weapons and went to attack Mr. Parker. So that was the
Okay.
idea. Is he didn't know it was coming, and it was everybody was going to attack him all at once. Horrible scenario. But Mr. Parker, thought very well, ran over behind the table of the judges, Master Parker and the others that are there, and grabbed Master Arnold's briefcase, brand new, and picked it up and held it. So Mr. Arnold jumped up and he's like, no, wait, stop! Because he didn't want his new briefcase messed up. But, you know, he was thinking outside the box. He was
Well,
thinking,
quick, yeah.
not fight everybody and get out of it. But it's just
Yeah. I
funny,
mean, that was a wise move.
Sure, it works.
Yeah. Why not? I mean,
But
just
anyway,
goes to show basically that especially if you are in a situation, you have to think quickly and try to like mitigate the situation the best that you can.
nobody can prepare for every situation.
Yeah,
But
that's
as
yeah,
much as
exactly. Exactly.
possibly can, do as much as you
Exactly.
can, and know that you're gonna be surprised. What do
Yeah.
you do after you're surprised? And if
Yeah.
you have no practice skills, you got nowhere to go after you've been surprised.
Yeah.
You know. So again, that's that 10,000 practice, 10,000 kick scenario over and over and over again.
Mm. Okay, Robert. For example, when your students basically have already uh, know the techniques or basically how to do it or how to do it properly, do you ever like put it like in like scenarios as well?
In low light scenarios,
Yeah, low light
is that what
scenarios
you're saying?
basically like in like for example, it's a confrontation, so you try to like get them to do like the escalation, and then it didn't work. went into like a full fight.
So, we go through, and especially as people progress, and it depends on what they're looking for to get out of the classrooms.
Okay.
You know, your ability to deal with somebody, not get into a fight with them.
Yeah.
If you can talk somebody out of it, that's
Yeah.
definitely the way to go. If I use the example for kids who join my classes, right? The parents want them to get in there to be able to learn to defend themselves, and I don't want them to go out and be a bully and go out and beat up other people.
Yeah.
You know,
That's true.
and so I let them know. I find out if they're getting in fights at school. I always find out. Somebody tells me. You
Uh-huh.
know, and I use the example that they have the right to defend themselves to the best of their ability. We talk about the laws. We talk about what you can and can't do, how far you can go. Your
Yeah.
opponent stops fighting, you stop fighting. And I let them know, really simple, and it's kind of a joke, but at the same time, I tell the students who's brand new and stuff, they can do competitions, they can go and not get fights, as far as that goes, go to the local tournament, that sort of thing. That's great. Test themselves in class. But if they want to go out and get in fights and beat people up and join a gang, they can do that. They just have one requirement. They have to beat me up first. So it doesn't happen. So pretty much, we talk about as far as de-escalating.
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to pick a fight with you, someone's trying to say, "Hey man, those are great shoes. Where did you get those?" Something to take the topic off. If
Yes.
you have that opportunity to talk, you have that opportunity to say, "Hey, I don't know what's going on. I don't want this to deal with." Like we talked about the 3-foot rule, right? If I sit there and I go like this and I'm in front of you, like getting ready to fight and stuff, that guy knows it's on.
Yeah.
But generally, our rule of thumb is somebody goes to throw an attack at you, 1 foot back at 3 feet. My
Mm.
hands are up like this, just in case there's a knife or there isn't.
Yeah.
This isn't threatening. This tells my opponent I'm not looking for trouble. But as we know, I can do everything from this position.
Yeah. That's
I'm
true.
ready to do every technique, but I'm not being aggressive with my opponent. So that's kind of the rule of thumb for us to try and, again, like you're saying, to de-escalate a situation,
Mm.
unless we absolutely had to do something.
Yeah. Excellent. Uh, yeah, I think also Dean also said here that's why I don't let strangers get close or I fence up. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Even though when you're de-escalating situation, still you have to manage your distance. You don't allow them to get too close to you.
Yep, absolutely. If there's one thing, and we start talking about this, white belts, they get up to their next belt, and we talk about, what's called critical distance, the ability to control your distance between you and your opponent. And there's different ranges that you can do physical things and
Mhm.
different ranges that you can't. If you can learn to control, think about one thing you know how to do. If just that one thing is your ability to control the distance between you and the other person, you can win in just about any fight. You can prevent them from hitting. You can decide to hit when you want to. You can feel the distance between you and your opponent. And that goes again for different ranges depending upon what the weapon is and stuff like that. But I think that's probably one of the most important things is to say, hey, this guy can punch me. He's too close.
Yeah.
This guy
That's true.
can throw a kick. He can hit me. I'm too close. But the ability for me to control that distance between me and the bad guy,
Mm.
and that's something that we start early on. Of course, it happens to be also, which is a great thing about Filipino martial arts, doing sinwalis, doing different motions like that with a stick, is you learn to feel that distance. If you don't, you get hit.
Yeah. I think yeah, actually what you said is true.
Yep, if you're too close, you get hit with that stick.
Yeah.
It happens to be just about the same range as a kick as well. So, I
Yeah.
mean, you feeling that distance, and again, it's a feeling. You can't something you can measure. It's something you got to know. Oh, I'm too close. I'm gonna get hit.
Mm.
And sometimes you misjudge and get hit in the eye. You know, so it happens.
Yeah, I think that's one of the beauty of practicing Filipino martial arts because we deal with weapons, different lengths of weapons as well.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow.
Generally, most sticks, as we know, are the length of your arm from your armpit to your out to your fingers. Most people, I prefer a shorter stick, but that's a personal value. But you're going to pick up whatever you have available, and you got to be able to judge whatever it is.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
true. That's true.
but I use a cane a lot. Sometimes I go to the VA and stuff, and I use a cane. My wife the other day, she was like, "Why are you using a cane? Your hip should be fine now because I had a hip replacement." And
Okay.
and so I'm walking with a cane, right? And she's, "Why are you using that?" And I'm like, "Because my feet hurt still, and this sort of thing." So, but I've also got a stick. If something happens, I can use my cane. It comes apart. I have two sticks. You
Exactly.
know,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
always have an option. But
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? I think there was one
sure,
time we went to Barcelona. I brought a walking stick with me.
there you go.
It managed to get through security in the airport, but of course my family was like, "Why do you have a walking stick?"
The less opponents know, the better. They look at you using a stick. They think, "Oh, there's a victim I can get," but you know how to use your stick. So
That's true.
yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, when you teach, Robert, when you teach, for example, like, um, especially like self-defense, when do you start like teaching them weapons of opportunity?
Very first class.
Okay.
You know, especially parents, they look at kids, they're like, "Why are you teaching them weapons?" And some people, because they don't have that understanding yet of why it's happening, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they have to understand that stick is a training tool. Again, like we said before, for you to be able to use just about anything, the chair leg, a table leg, a tree limb, whatever, a pool stick, whatever's available. And I think from the very first class, especially kids, they have to have that understanding that, if someone comes at me with a weapon, I need to be able to defend myself. I need to be able to get away,
Yeah.
And of course, a little tiny child and stuff is not going to be as good as dealing with an adult, as far as that goes, as far as a
Yeah,
weapon
that's true.
goes.
Mm-hmm.
But them having that little bit of understanding self defense wise to know that things are far worse, that person is trying to hit me with a weapon, you know,
Yeah.
to get away, to try and that person grabs you. How do I get out of that grab? Simple stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's important the very first class, first class punching stance, their first kicks, their first sinwali,
Mm-hmm.
twirling, how to use a stick, moving it, dealing with situational defense, how someone grabs you and get away. Very first class. Now they're not pros at it after their first class. They still have to do it 10,000 times.
Yeah,
But
of course. Yeah.
that awareness has to start coming from the first class.
Okay. Wow. Brilliant. I mean, you
There's a lot of different topics, things we can talk about, and I sometimes can go on for hours,
yeah, no, I mean, we
but
can
it
have a
depends
part two.
on
We can always have a
the
part two.
sure, absolutely.
Yeah, but I mean, how you presented basically, like the hubad and how to basically use it to bridge into other stuff. It's actually good. Yeah,
Good.
because I mean,
Me, I
gives
like doing
people
kicks.
idea basically how to like progress from just basically doing the hubad.
Sure. As far as other categories and stuff, we talk about grappling, having to
Mhm.
deal with somebody on the ground. A lot of people have a different idea about what Dumog is. And
Yeah.
I think about Dumog as far as being like jujitsu, being the
Uh-huh.
difference, or like judo. Us doing kicks, us doing punches, a lot of those things come from Taekwondo, Muay Thai, different ideas as far as that goes. Our concept as far as dealing with somebody on the ground, I
Yeah.
understand jiu-jitsu is to get in, take the person down, get them to submit as much as possible. There's opportunities of which to be able to do that. If there's multiple opponents, if there's a weapon, that's something I wouldn't choose to do. We take
Yeah.
a more
Mm.
combative stance. I used the example just this last week with Chris. Uh, we were talking, look online, if you will. Great grandma, or I call him now anyway, Professor Priestless. Um, find a video where he gets on the ground. You won't.
Nah.
his his thing was to take someone down, to use a kneel over that person, to lock that person, but he never got on the ground with them. And our philosophy is kind of really that way, more combative instead of more competition wise, as far as dealing with somebody, as far as a grappling situation goes, you know. So, I mean, I tell you, I love just like anybody else to get on the ground and roll with somebody. I have problems doing that now, but if I had to, I still know how to do a lot of those things as far as dealing with it. But to choose to, we don't choose to go to the ground.
Mm. Mm.
If we're out on the concrete, boy, I don't want to roll on the concrete with somebody. You know, there's other places that are fun as far as that goes, but
Yeah.
as far as a real life fight, that's not something I would do. But there's a
Mm.
lot of different categories, as you were saying, a low light thing, right? um, Different types of situations dealing with punches and kicks. There's no weapon. So,
Yeah.
especially going with Filipino martial arts, you see a lot of people these days that are questioning, what am I doing empty handed? And a lot of people saying, well, how do you do we're looking at it like, how do you not have punches and kicks? You know, that's what I've done since the beginning. It was never a time where we didn't have those things. So, I mean, there's a lot of topics that we could get into on another time.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. Definitely.
So we had a few questions today, but hopefully more of them next time. But
Okay.
I know you can see them.
There's a comment from Tom Chrysostomo here. That's a great point. Why give up our high ground by going down with the opponent?
Absolutely. If anybody who wants to question that, get on the ground and have the guy standing over you with a stick and see how well it works. It doesn't. You know, if all possible, not get on the ground with somebody. And that, again, that's our philosophy. I know that other people
Mm.
have different ones.
Yeah.
And we also go through this scenario if I'm on the ground, how do I take that person down who's standing? How do I throw that person? We'd go through throws, and that sort of thing. So there's a lot of those scenarios, but they're absolutely correct. Why get on the ground with somebody?
Mm.
But anyway, again, I always say with my students and stuff, question what I'm teaching you. Don't take it for granted 100%. I don't have all the answers. Nobody does. You
Mm.
should always be questioning and trying to evolve.
Yeah. I, I think that's a very important. Yeah, that's a very important thing that you tell your students to question basically what you say. So at least,
Absolutely.
yeah, because I mean, you teach it the way you teach it. You teach it the way how you basically, according to your experience, according to your journey. They might have a different take on it, but at least if they try to basically do what you're teaching them, and if they would like to learn more, they would like to basically to address certain situations. Why not?
I've studied a bunch of different arts, trained with a bunch of different people in different systems. You
Yeah,
know, um, if you don't encourage people to go out and do that, you're holding them back. You
that's
know,
yeah,
if
yeah. That's
somebody
a good
wants to
point.
do something else, they should.
That's a
Yeah.
good point. Yes, yeah, 100%. I agree.
You know, they're more likely to come back to you if
Mm,
you're doing the right thing. You
yeah,
know, and
exactly.
I've had a lot of people, and as we know, you affect lives for the rest of their lives. You know,
Yeah,
you might have encouraged something in them that made a difference for their life later on. And they
yeah.
may never come back and be a long-time student, you
It doesn't
know,
matter.
but if you've affected them, albeit all the better. You know,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
if other people want to, I have a student, Chris's brother, who's a professional wrestler, and he does all kinds of stuff, and he wants to do some other systems as far as do some jujitsu and stuff like that, and I'm like, I'm all for it, go for it. You know, learn some other different little things on the side as well. You
Yeah,
know,
why
if it
not?
helps
Mm,
you with your job, helps you with your wrestling,
yeah,
that's great. But anyway,
especially
so
if
I encourage
it
it.
gives you like certain, it gives you confidence as
Yeah,
well.
absolutely.
Yeah. Wow, it was a great interview with you, Robert, and I really love the demos that you did.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. Been watching a
Yep.
bunch of the different shows that you guys do, and and I was like, man, I want to do that. Talk about teaching sometime. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
but we touched on it a little bit, so I'm all good on that.
okay. We're not done yet because there's a follow up here. Okay. First one, Dean said good points, and he also tells his student the same thing: challenge and question everything. Tom Crisostomo asked this: do you find it that students with a BJJ background have a difficult time not going to the ground or give up their weapon easily to grapple?
So we do grappling with weapons as well. Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and Jiu Jitsu. Chris came to me from other systems as well, where he was doing Jiu Jitsu and came in to do things with us. And there's things that they bring to the table that helps me and helps me question it.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as them doing things, yes, at first I've had students out there that do jujitsu that that's what they like to do, and that's great, and it's comfortable for them and it's safe for them and stuff like this. I look at it more from an aspect of combative situation.
Mm-hmm.
That there's times that I might choose to go to the ground with somebody. We're out on grass. There's certain particular things, just those two people. There's certain instances. So I give them ideas of where what they can do is great. That their skill set of doing things over and over again, grappling on the ground. Someone honestly who does jujitsu all the time, they roll all the time. They're going to be better on the ground than I am.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't, I, so especially, if I know that, I'm not going to go on the ground with them, absolutely not. But, if that person comes to me and they're a student of jujitsu and stuff, I encourage them to bring that into what we know how to do, add it to
Mm.
what we know, make themselves better and look at the idea of, you know, is it the best idea for them, to go to the ground and in their situation? Because not every situation is good for going to the ground.
Yeah.
Like you said, if someone has a weapon, you're within a group of people,
Yep.
person, there's that's group around, that's a tough, you're out on the gravel, you're talking about picking gravel out of your arms and your legs, there's instances in which, I wouldn't choose to, but I mean, that's up to the individual, but I hope to influence and give them more to work with
Mm.
besides going to the ground.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, different conditions basically would require a different way of responding to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Are there any more questions or comments from you guys? You're watching. There's a follow up here by Tom, but I'm not really sure because the other part of the question, the second part is or even pressure by going into corto range instead of maintaining their medio and largo ranges. I'm not really sure how that what it meant. But
So I'm not exactly okay.
Tom, if you
Good.
can clarify this, please, so we can ask Robert.
So talking about doing your different ranges for dealing with blockchain counter, as I'm guessing, doing blockchain counter. I mean, obviously for beginning practice, to do it at medial range would be what you would do. So that person can see, they can feel, and ask questions and have an understanding. Knowing that really you're not going to be able to apply those things at medial range. Not really.
Mhm.
Someone going full speed, someone
Yeah,
going fast, it's not going to happen. But you're using that to develop your skill set, your abilities, and you would go into a closer range where someone grabs you, someone's closer trying to throw a punch to be able to use those things. Now, at
mm,
times, depending upon your situation and what you're dealing with, you might go back out to medio. You might go out to largo model, a long range, where that person can hit you. Again,
yeah,
depends. Maybe they pulled a weapon. Maybe, something different happened where I had to create a different distance. Learning to do what technique at what range is a big difference. A lot of people try to throw a knee at medial range when they're too far away that it's not going to hit. They try and throw a punch at medial range where the punch isn't going to hit. You got to learn to use what technique for the right range. And that still applies the same way as for blockchain counter. And that takes time, takes practice. I mean, even still, I pressure Chris, us doing things, what is the right thing for that range, should I have used that? Should I have not used that?
okay.
To help us improve, to feel what's right for the correct range.
Okay. Tom basically cleared his question. He said, "What I mean is, do you find it that your BJJ students, because of their background in grappling, have a hard time maintaining their distance because they're used to closing the distance?"
There's drills that you can work on as far as someone who's used to being too close, used to closing that distance. There's definitely times that I need to close the distance, where I'm going to try and control my opponent, where I'm going to try and take my opponent down. Um, there's definite times for that. And so, again, there's drills that you can work on, like using a stick, where you learn to get the feel for that distance that you're at, and then to close it to being close to you to get that different range too, where you would use the butt of the weapon as opposed to the length of the weapon. Using jujitsu, sometimes people they want to get in close. I have a gentleman right now who's training with me who is used to boxing, and he's used to sparring and being at a range at which he can do punches where he's close, not farther away. And so it's kind of tough. Yeah, and again, still that same thing. But like everything else, I mean, the more you practice it, the more you do it, you get to feel better for being at different ranges. So everybody does that. Everybody becomes comfortable, like doing grappling, doing jujitsu. They get comfortable being at that close range. And I
Mhm.
challenge my students to be at a range they're not comfortable in. So they get better at the ranges they're not comfortable in. So again, as someone who does jujitsu, it's great that their skill set and we can all learn from that skill set of being close. But I challenge them, to practice and do things at the range they're not comfortable.
Yeah, that's actually quite true because I mean you can't dictate what happens in an actual fight. So I mean practicing and becoming comfortable in different ranges is really important.
You find that a lot as far as different styles of Filipino martial arts,
Mm,
where they just work medial range.
yeah.
They're not used to working largo mano. They're not used to doing close range stuff.
Mm,
Um, for us, we tried that variety of moving from our different ranges,
mm,
not to be stuck with one range because you
yeah.
don't know what your opponent's going to do.
Yeah, that's true actually. Yeah. Especially in a fight.
Yeah.
It's very dynamic. A fight is very dynamic.
I had some students a while back that James and his family, and they were all really tall, you know, so they could throw kicks, and you're halfway across the room, and so they had
I know.
everything. Everything with them was long range,
Yeah,
and so we had to learn, and like anybody would, you have to learn to deal with that person who had the long range on you,
yeah,
and sometimes fight at that range, sometimes fight close.
yeah,
It just depends on the situation.
yeah. I know how that feels because I used to take up warangdo. It's a Korean art, but my partner who normally I do the drills with and spar with is actually 6'1", 6'2", and I'm only 5'3". So just imagine trying to play his range. It was really hard for me,
Yeah.
but I had to learn.
With the drill we were just doing, as far as doing block check counter,
Yeah.
James and his boys were the same way. They were all like, 6'5", 6'6", really tall over us and everything.
Mm,
So trying to do block check counter with them when their
mm,
arms are like, way out here,
mm.
and so you had to learn to adapt to that individual, you
Exactly.
know, as far as
Exactly.
the length of their arms, and at the same time help them adjust to
Yeah.
deal with somebody who is closer. So
Exactly. All right. Well, we had I had a very good time interviewing you and watching your demos and everything. We definitely need to have like a part two with this one, especially if you can like bring out some more of like how do you bridge from
sure.
certain classical drills to something that is more practical for people to use. So we normally have this question to every guest that we have. Um, if there's one thing or a few things that you can say to the FMA community with regards to training, with regards to mindset, with regards to whatever, what would it be?
Just like I think one of the most inspirational things that Jeff Arnold gave me, I know some people criticize it and whatnot, is
Mm-hmm.
keeping an open mind. Not to say that what you have is 100%, but to say, and question what you do, not just pressure test. Work in a real life situation. Does this technique from a different system? Should I
Mm-hmm.
add it to what I'm doing? Not to be closed off. Traditional is to be progressive, to be advancing. So keep an open mind and make your system advance, not be stuck on a tradition that doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. Actually, I like how you phrased the last part. Okay. That is really important. Yeah. That is really important. Yeah. I mean still goes to show that tradition doesn't have to be obsolete, but if you don't keep yourself relevant, that's when it makes it obsolete, and for some people to not see or appreciate the value of
Absolutely.
yeah. So okay, I mean, thank you very much, Master Robert, for being our guest in FMA discussion. And it was really an enjoyable interview with you.
Thank you. Anytime. I'd gladly do this again. So
Okay, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, and thank you, Chris, as well for assisting.
said thank you as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank.
I appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Last comment from Tom here. That's a great point. All grandmasters have taken what was traditional for them and have evolved them in their own ways. That's very true.
There it is. Yep.
There you go. All right. Okay. Thank you very
Have a good
much.
night.
Yeah.
Get
Enjoy
some
the rest
sleep.
of your day. Yeah. I know it's already 1 a.m. here.
Oh, wow.
Have a nice week as well. Thank you guys
You
for
too.
watching. Thank
All
you.
right. Anytime.
Thank you. Right, so there you go, guys. Episode 350 with Master Robert Small. Okay, I do hope you enjoyed the demos that he did, and also the thoughts, the words of wisdom that he shared with us today. So Have a nice week, and see you the next time. Please don't forget, we have a Christmas charity raffle that we're going to draw the winners on the 11th of December. So it is currently running. To buy tickets, we already posted the flyer at FMA discussion. All you need to do is to send the money to Dean's PayPal and tell him basically how many slots you're taking for the raffle, and fingers crossed you basically win some of the fantastic prizes that we've got. I know GM Bram Frank is again donating um, a number of his LLC, or the Lapu Lapu Corto, and you've got some DVDs as well from Mark Denny, books from Master Ray Galang, I think instructional video from Master Ray Floro. So check the flyers, check the announcement of Dean, and please support this Christmas charity raffle of FMA discussion. Bye.